Hi, and happy Friday from here on out, known as Day. um, we have just one last chapter left in Science Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera, and I'm very curious how this is going to come to an end. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. This chapter is chapter 9, and it's called The Obsidian Place with No Windows or Holes for the Smoke. She couldn't stop. She had to keep walking even if she didn't know how she was going to get back. It was the rhythm, it was her burden-free body, it was the soft sound of her own panting that pushed her on. She quickened her step. With the ashen sun head on, she walked down gray streets and past houses that were all the same, like little boxes lined up in a storefront window. She came to a park all a-twitter with birds about to go to sleep. She walked straight through the middle of it, not around it on the sidewalk, and with each step her feet, pad, 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 left an imprint on the earth. The evening clouded over until you couldn't see more than one step ahead, and yet Makina didn't stop. She walked quickly, pad, 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 guiding herself by the trilling in the trees. Suddenly she heard, "Watch how you go, darlin'." She turned to see who had spoken because they'd said it in the Latin tongue, and saw that there, sitting on a bench looking exactly like himself and also quite different, like varnished over, like meaner, or with a bigger nose, was Chucho grinning at her. First she saw the ember, then the man who made it glow. Makina felt herself smile, though she didn't feel the emotion behind the smile because she'd somehow been emptied of feelings by now. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Doing my thing, looking out for you. Don't you work for Mr. H? Mr. Q is the one who was supposed to help me on this side." "I work for whoever hires me. Never stop watching you. I know where you've been and how tough things got." "Things are tough all over, but here I'm all mixed up. I just don't understand this place." "Don't let it get you down. They don't understand it either. They live in fear of the lights going out, as if every day wasn't already made of lightning and blackouts. They need us. They want to live forever, but still can't see for that to work they need to change color and number, but it's already happening." Chucho took a drag on his cigarette so deep he almost consumed it all. Then he said, "And now you're here. Follow me." He stood and Makina walked beside him. They left the park, entered a little maze of streets that looked like they belonged to some other city, and stopped before a low, narrow door behind which nothing could be seen. "Go on in," Chucho said, pointing. "Here? What is this place?" "Here's where they'll give you a hand." Makina crouched down to fit through the door, and on taking the first step felt a cold wind coming from inside, but didn't get cold herself. She saw the top of a spiral staircase. She began to descend, turned to see if Chucho was following, but he had stayed at the door, blew her a kiss, moved out of the frame, and Makina caught a glimpse of the last rays of the sun. Then she went on down. After 4 spiral turns, she came to another door, which was answered by a handsome old woman with very long white fingernails and a powdered face, wearing a butterfly pin that held back the folds of her dress. Over the door was a sign that said, "Verse." She tried to remember how to say verse in any of her tongues, but couldn't. This was the only word that came to her lips. Verse. The woman drew 2 cigarettes from a black case, lit them both, and held one out. Makina took it and stepped through. The place was like a sleepwalker's bedroom, specific yet inexact. Somehow unreal and yet vivid. There were lots of people, very calm, all smoking, and though she saw no ventilation shafts nor felt any currents, the air didn't smell. Like a song from long ago, a sudden apprehension made her think something terrible was going to occur any second. Something's about to happen, something's about to happen. She tensed and felt she loved her skin, but the tension soon gave way, lulled by the only clear and distinguishable sound in the place. She hadn't noticed it until now. There was no music, no conversation, just the sound of running water. Not like through the plumbing, but the energetic coursing of subterranean rivers that reminded her that it had been a while since she'd washed, and yet she wasn't dirty, didn't smell bad, didn't smell at all. What's going to happen, she wondered. Then, making his way toward her from among the crowd, she saw a tall, thin man draped in a baggy leather jacket. He had protruding teeth that yellowed his enormous smile. He stopped in front of her. "Here." He held out a file. "All taken care of." Makina took the file and looked at its contents. There she was, with another name, another birthplace. Her photo, new numbers, new trade, new home. "I've been skinned," she whispered. When she looked up, the man was no longer there, and she tipped briefly into panic. She felt for a second, or for many seconds. She couldn't tell because she didn't have a watch. Nobody had a watch. that the turmoil of so many new things crowding in on the old ones was more than she could take. But a second, or many, later, she stopped feeling the weight of uncertainty and guilt. She thought back to her people as though recalling the contours of a lovely landscape that was now fading away. The village, the little town, the big Chilango, all those colors, and she saw that what was happening was not a cataclysm. She understood with all of her body and all of her memory. She truly understood, and when everything in the world fell silent, finally said to herself, I'm ready. The end. That's how it ends. Wow, I'm so curious what you all think. If you want to leave a comment below with any thoughts, that'd be great. I think what I'll do next is think about this book myself for a little bit. What world has ended in this novel, and what kind of hero Makina is. But also, I think I'll take a break over the weekend, and on Monday I'll be back, not with a new reading, but with some books to choose from. And those of you who are still listening can let me know what you would like to hear. In the meantime, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming along with me for this ride that was this strange, enigmatic book. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all here on Monday. Bye.